Hi everyone, welcome to 5 Quote Shakespeare, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone clips. If you like what you see, don't forget to like and subscribe, and be sure to visit my YouTube channel for a chapter-by-chapter analysis of the most important themes in the story. See the description for details. Thanks for watching. Now, Harry Potter Book 1 is, of course, a book for children, and children understand the world in caricature form, in very, very simple black and white form. And, of course, the muggles in the early pages of this book are boorish caricatures of the worst aspects of the every person, the every man, the every woman. J.K. Rowling gets much, much subtler later on in the series, of course, as the final books are not for kids at all. Young readers, when we read this at the kiddie level, they are reminded of their seemingly dull parents going to seemingly dull jobs, do you see? And the kids see themselves as adventurous, put upon heroes oppressed by their really, really boring parents who tell them to brush their teeth, do you see? So it's for kids. But magic in this case is being used as a metaphor for creative imagination, which kids live in a world of imagination more so than many adults, because we have to go to Grunnings. We have to make drills. We have to make money to give you food, you little monster who thinks that I'm boring. So here's right off on page 1, we see the contrast between the boring muggle existence and the magical, romantic, imaginative life of the child. So Mr. Dursley was the director of a firm called Grunnings, which made drills. Brilliant, right? He was a big, beefy man with hardly any neck, although he did have a very large mustache. So again, a caricature of this dull middle class. Mrs. Dursley, the same thing, thin and blonde, had nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent so much of her time craning over fences, spying on the neighbors. Again, all these kind of these boring, typical, every person things to do. Very much a description right out of Roald Dahl. Beautiful. So the Muggles are depicted as these uncreative, middling middle class that we see. Now, of course, this isn't us, of course. We are the heroic, imaginative type, aren't we? Not you, dear reader, certainly not you. So here we see him again on page 5. Mr. Dursley hurried to his car and set off home, hoping he was imagining things which he had never hoped before because he didn't approve of imagination. So right at the start, we get a caricature of the every person. Again, it's quite simplistic, but it's for children, so fair enough. No originality, please. We're Muggles. Muggles is used in a very derisive way in the early chapters, not so later on, of course. J.K. Rowling's too smart for that. Now, in contrast to the Muggles, of course, the magic users are depicted as alluring, they're vital, they're full of mysterious potential and a deeper, more meaningful knowledge, wisdom, and experience. That's basically what we've just been talking about in this video. It's the hero's golden treasure, hard fought from the depths of the unknown. That's what McGonagall and Dumbledore are depicted as at the beginning chapters. We don't know it consciously, but subconsciously we feel that they have something beyond. They have a wisdom that the young person is yearning for that's beyond this, do you see? There must be more. There must be something that transcends the mundane reality of eating breakfast cereal and brushing your teeth afterwards. There must be more. And these magic users are depicted as the shaman, as the priests who go into the unknown of the subconscious, go into the unknown in the real world, and they bring back a knowledge of that unknown. So Dumbledore slipped the put outer, of course, that's the dark, the power of the subconscious, back inside his cloak and set off down the street towards number 4, where he sat down on the wall next to a cat. He didn't look at the cat, but after a moment he spoke to the cat. Weird things are happening. The unknown. Fancy seeing you here, Professor McGonagall. He turned to smile at the tabby cat, but it had gone. Instead, he was smiling at a rather severe-looking woman who was wearing square glasses exactly the shape of the markings the cat had seen around its eyes. So McGonagall, Dumbledore, associated with the powers of darkness, the good powers of darkness, the subconscious, the realm beyond, the transcendent realm beyond. That's where the shaman hero was supposed to go and bring back that knowledge. I have never seen any reason to be frightened of saying the word Voldemort. Now here we see again what we're trying to establish here is that the magic users have knowledge beyond. There's courage. They've slain dragons. They've slain dragons that the Dursleys refuse to admit exist. They do not want to confront that. And these guys have confronted that. And Dumbledore has confronted the ultimate evil, the cosmic evil of Voldemort, and he's not afraid of it. I know you haven't, you said Professor McGonagall, sounding half exasperated, half admiring, but you're different. Everyone knows you're the only one you know who, oh, all right, Voldemort, was frightened of. You're the one that the ultimate power of darkness is frightened of. Now that's a hero. You flatter me, said Dumbledore calmly. Voldemort had powers I will never have. There's humility, great father figure, DC. Only because you're, well, too noble. So he's noble, he's humble, he's powerful, he's courageous. He will look evil in the face and not turn away, unlike the world of the Gunnings, Drills merchant who refuses to look at the darker forces in the world, both negative and positive dark forces in the world. So here we are, the magic users are seen as this dynamic potential, this dynamic energy and power versus the everyday world of the Muggles. And Muggles are lovely people too, as J.K. Rowling knew, and she develops that later on. Okay, so related to all that is the fear of the unknown, which we've hinted at already, and even more importantly, raison démon. As we have seen, people fear what we don't understand, and we react with hostility when we encounter the unknown in others. When somebody has something that we don't have access to, we immediately reject it. We all do this, and be honest with yourself. You do that as well. This hostility is compounded when we suspect that those who do possess the unknown have something of value inaccessible to us, and that's where it turns into this resentment, this envy-based resentment, ressentiment, as Nietzsche called it. Do you see? This hostility is a defense mechanism to protect us from feelings of inferiority. Here we see the Dursleys shoo the unknown. There are the owls, symbols of the unknown, and here's the Muggle. Here are the Muggles shooing them away. Poor Petunia, of course, it's absolutely based in envy because she doesn't have the magic powers that her sister has. So here's a definition of ressentiment just from the Oxford reference from online. You can click here if you buy the PDFs. Ressentiment is a vengeful, petty-minded state of being that does not so much want what others have, not that kind of simplistic envy like jealousy, although that's part of it, as they want others not to have what they have. I don't want you to be you. That's how bossy it can be. That's how finger-wagging it can be, do you see? In Nietzsche's view, ressentiment is more fully defined as desire to live a pious existence, wagging your finger at other people, telling them how to behave. Professor Umbridge. And thereby position oneself to judge others, to apportion blame, and determine responsibility. I'm living the proper life. This is the proper life to live. You weirdos and freaks out there should change to adapt yourself to a more normal life like mine, do you see? So that ressentiment exists in our world today like crazy because the internet and social media is multiplying it by massive amounts. So the theme of ressentiment, envy of others' creative talents and successes, runs throughout the entire Harry Potter series. We see it in Malfoy vis-a-vis Harry Potter. We see it in a lot of other characters as well. Here, of course, the beginning story, it's quite simple for kids. It is reserved for the Dursleys, especially Aunt Petunia's jealousy of her sister. So Dursley, of course, he's hearing mutterings of the word Harry Potter out there, and he's afraid to mention it to his wife because he knows that she doesn't want to hear anything about the Potters. Petunia, says Mr. Dursley, you haven't heard from your sister lately, have you? As he expected, Mrs. Dursley looked shocked and angry at the mere mention of her sister who has access to the unknown. After all, they normally pretended she didn't have a sister. No, she said sharply. Why? Funny stuff in the news, Mr. Dursley mumbled. Owls, the unknown. Shooting stars, the unknown. And there were a lot of funny-looking people in town today. So, she snapped, well, I just thought maybe it was something to do with her lot, he says derisively. Mrs. Dursley sipped her tea with pursed lips. You're not behaving. They don't behave the way that they should behave. I don't want to hear about this. It's a defense mechanism. I'm not unspecial. They're just a bunch of freaks and losers. We do this all the time. Very, very sad. Look around the world and purge it from yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Please heal the wasteland by getting rid of your ressentiment. All right, so related to that is the avoidance coping mechanism. The West is living through a strange cultural moment of avoidance coping, of safetyism. We try to protect young people from all possible threats, and that's doing a hell of a lot of damage. Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling knew that avoidance coping was the last thing we need to become complete, mature independent individuals. Many episodes in the Harry Potter series, not just this book, but many of the books, demonstrate how the only way to overcome our fears is to face them. Avoidance guarantees that a fear will remain permanent and probably get worse. Now, we see it in the Dursleys trying to avoid knowledge of what they are afraid of, and we are derisive of the Dursleys. And yet, in our culture, this is how we live our lives. We try to protect young people from things that they might find distressful, and it's doing a lot of damage. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. So here's a definition from the National Library of Medicine. Here's lots of studies. You can click here if you buy the PDFs. You can click here and you'll see it. But look it up yourself. It's all over the place. So avoidance coping involves cognitive and behavioral efforts oriented towards denying and minimizing or otherwise avoiding dealing with stressful demands, and is closely linked to distress and depression. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley, that's exactly what they do. They try to deny and minimize something that they don't understand, something that they're afraid of. So like most themes introduced in Harry Potter 1, the avoidance theme grows in significance in later books. You will see it, especially in Harry Potter 5, The Order of the Phoenix, where everybody, Umbridge and Fudge, they don't want to acknowledge that Voldemort exists, so they stick their head in the sand and they say, no, it'll be fine. And does it work? Does avoidance work? Obviously not. So in chapter 1 of this particular book, Mr. Dursley tries to lie to himself. We see him again and again and again. We laugh at him. We laugh at him because it's laughable, but yet in our culture today, we're doing exactly that. So he tries to lie to himself to avoid facing a distressing truth, and it's a strategy that never works. Again, let's go back to Carl Jung. Beautiful phrase. I'm going to come back to this again in other lectures because it's a beautiful phrase. What you need most shall be found where you least want to look. The hero enters the forest at the place that is darkest to him or her. You enter the dark forest. That's where you will find your treasure. No dark forest, no fear, no treasure, ladies and gentlemen. So here we see in pages 4 and 5. The Potters, that's right, that's what I heard. Yes, their son, Harry. So Mr. Dursley is hearing these mutterings of the unknown, mutterings of things beyond his comprehension and things that he fears. He's hearing this stuff. And what does he do? Does he say, oh, that's interesting. What's going on over there? No, he avoids it. No, Mr. Dursley says to himself, I'm just being stupid. Potter wasn't such an unusual name after all. It's probably a different kind of Potter. He was sure that there were lots of people named Potter who had a son called Harry. Come to think of it, he wasn't even sure his nephew was called Harry. Nah. He's trying to lie to himself. Go ahead, lie to yourself. Your subconscious knows what's real, and your subconscious will come back and punish you, oh my goodness, in the form of distress and more depression and more anxiety. So, good grief, what a stupid culture. All right, so the next theme, the last theme we'll talk about today is the dangers of fame.